So today I'm delighted to welcome Daniela Zuin, a seasoned marketing leader that has a long history in AI as well as intelligent automation across many industries, including insurance. Daniela is now the CMO of Market Logic Software, that we'll hear a little bit about in a moment, which amongst its solutions helps grant insights into insurance and financial services organisations. I've had the pleasure of working with Daniela in a former business, so a genuine welcome today, Daniela.
Thank you.
And we've had our catch up before this session, so we'll do away with all the niceties and we'll jump straight into the podcast.
Thank
So, yeah, with that, Daniela, do you want to maybe give your own intro and then a little bit about Market Logic Software?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for inviting me. Really good to join you here today, Danny. Yes, so I have been a B2B marketer for well over 20 years, working with, as Danny mentioned, AI products as well as big services and outsourcing services in the past. So quite a varied range of businesses that I've worked with, but really quite a lot with financial services over the years as well. Market Logic, which is where I joined 2 years ago now, so I've been there just over 2 years, is a very interesting area, a different kind of product. We have a platform that essentially helps you to bring together all the data that you'd be using in terms of market research, so that your planning cycles around what is actually going to be the products that my customers want can all be housed in a single platform, and we also help you access it very easily. But I guess we'll talk in a bit more detail about how that works.
Perfect. So obviously technology is a big part of kind of how you work with your customers and kind of why they select yourselves. I think even in the commentary before we started recording, we were talking about AI and productivity and kind of how it helps for a variety of different outcomes. But I think maybe with AI in its various guises being more accessible to the general populace users, how are you seeing that kind of change in market dynamics affect the way in which you talk about your product to the market and the types of things that maybe kind of your customers engage with yourselves on?
Yeah. Well, a big change was 2 years ago. We also introduced new element to the product called Deep Sites. And this is, like many of the other Gen AI interfaces that we've become used to, you're able to just chat with it, interact with it, has completely transformed, quite honestly, how much our customers' wider business actually now accesses all the research that they've paid for. So it's actually had a massive impact. We see when they roll out Deep Sites, even though they have maybe hundreds of users in a typical global enterprise, whereas before they maybe used to go in, I don't know, a few times a month, maybe. It makes it possible to just quickly get some information. So it becomes almost a daily habit or multiple touches during the day. So we see that really skyrocket. So one of the things is seeing AI enable the whole company to access data. But also it makes a massive difference in terms of finding connections between different data points that was otherwise very difficult. Because if you're asking about a particular trend, how is climate change affecting the kinds of demands, let's say, that you've got around house insurance,
Mhm.
then you're actually trying to access many different data points from different reports, different sources, some of your own internal customer feedback, and being able to thread that together before you had Gen AI would still take some time, whereas now that packages up very quickly into a response so that you can then explore it further. So Gen AI is, I think it's completely transforming how companies, how the business stakeholders in companies are interacting with that intelligence.
And maybe on that, is that was that a pull you kind of saw from the market? People taking the experience they have in using Gen AI on their mobile at home, having that same expectation in the way in which they're using enterprise software, or was it more of a, I suppose, a push in the sense of you're expecting this wave of customer requirements and you were kind of delivering that ahead of time, or
Yeah, I think we were, our chief product officer was pretty hot and I think ahead of the curve in terms of us already having developed something. So we came out with this product only a few months, maybe 4 months, yeah, after you'd started to hear a lot about Gen AI at a really different level when that really hit the news. But it's interesting though that it goes in different cycles because although people were really interested in having a look and it was all very new, what we've noticed, especially for big brands that we work with, we work with global enterprise brands, um, they are very cautious as well. Quite right. Is this giving us the information that is credible, that has all the sources cited, very explicitly? Are there no hallucinations in terms of the response? Because all of that, explosion of sharing, and they often call it in the insights industry, democratization of information just won't happen. It'll all get ground to a halt if when somebody reads a response, it's actually misleading them because it's interpreting these data points differently. So what we saw was actually quite a long cycle of people testing and testing and testing again. And it's only once they've had the confidence that then, they roll it out to the rest of the organization. But then the results have been, really spectacular, I'd say.
and probably maybe also a bit off topic, but that approach that they take around how they
Mm.
take on kind of Gen AI
Yeah.
enabled technology into their business. Are they aware about what they need to do? Are they leaning on you perhaps for what should we be testing? What should we be knowing? Maybe it's more of a maturity question around where you think people, the organizations that you're working with are when adopting this type of technology.
Yeah, I think it has been, there's been such a transformation, I think, in all industries in terms of what is this kind of AI? What are the rules that you need? So yes, we're in our realm, we've given them a lot of guidance around, this is what you need to do around governing the data. This is how you can, if you like, customize your deep sites a little bit to understand your language, because the whole point is it has to understand the nuances of, for example, if I'm reading a document, was this document, it's got quotes from customers, but are they facts, or this is a voice of the customer survey? So it's an opinion which needs to be digested, but it's not a hardcore fact. Or if you've got two different reports who have some slightly different, some slight contradictions in what they're saying, can you call that out like a human would and say, look, maybe we need to get a more recent report, maybe, or which of these two sources do you trust better because they're not fully aligned. So it's all of those details that we've found we're guiding our customers through understanding these are the things you need to look into, and you set your rules so that it works well for you.
So playing back then almost guardrails that are inherent within the
Mm.
technology, but then business rules that are nuanced to the organization with the call it the human in the loop, probably as we used to call it, which is okay, some event has been triggered. I need to go to a person in order to resolve
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, very much. And then I think we're kind of on the cusp of seeing this. I don't think we've seen it tons yet. And maybe you have as well. But it's also the relationship between different AIs. Yeah. So you've got this is a source of intelligence, if you like. So it will not only be accessed by a human. It could be that this is accessed or queried or information from here passes on to a different AI that is being used to for example, to actually generate concepts. Let's say you're putting together a plan, and you want to bring a new product to market, and you're working on the campaign, and so you want to make sure that you're drawing on all the data and the research that you've got in order to make sure that the messaging around the campaign is going to really illustrate the strengths of the product, but really land and resonate with the consumer at the other end. But you're maybe nowadays using Gen AI to actually generate ads, generate copy ideas, which you'll then refine. So having those AIs connect to our AI that is helping to ensure that you're right on message and is feeding the right kind of data. That's one example of how they might work together. But there's many many examples like that, and I think something that's going to be a lot more common, that it won't just be AI to human, but AI to AI and then maybe to human.
Yeah, and I suppose it's that whole thing about the persona or role that is accessing that output. I think I'm probably going back to the world that we primarily sit in. It's that okay, you're using kind of AI to engage with an end user, but actually AI is working with other AIs that then have a dependency on is the information accurate because it's then a daisy chain to your point around using it to feed a campaign. It's AI into some probably productivity tool for a marketeer that's then
Yeah,
out in the market. And if you're not considering where
yeah.
those sources of information come from and how trusted they can be, so there's implications. So good.
There are. So it's a world of possibilities out there.
So it seems obviously kind of AI is kind of core to your strategy, and I think, and we were talking a little bit as a run up to this about kind of how it's owned within your organization. It sounds like it stems from a product strategy, understanding what customers are requiring, and kind of that's the way in which it proliferates out.
Yeah, within our own within Market Logic, I would say that in terms of the product development, yes, that's very much our chief product and innovation officer. He's owning that, exploring that. We are also, though, trying to, from an operations perspective, incorporate AI into our own work, our own B2B marketing and sales work. So we're seeing that come out, and I guess that's maybe a bit more. The overseer of that is our head of business operations. So we've got the two working together. But the product innovation for sure, yes, it's with the product.
So actually, maybe on that then, because actually, part of the podcast we've spoken to of MGAs, brokers, TPAs, vendors from that perspective, but maybe just on that piece. So maybe you using AI within your business as a productivity play. You know, how did that manifest itself? Is it department led? Is it operationally led? How did that come to pass?
Yeah, so within our own organization, we have used it as a kind of across the board productivity tool. We are using deep sites ourselves, just to make sure in terms of our own market data that we can house it and explore it there. What we also notice though, in terms of when we're working with our customers, the AI that they're using for their customer research data, that platform, that is still primarily championed by the people who are running the insights and intelligence teams.
Mhm.
Frequently, you'll see they're part of the marketing team. So that marketing function is a big driver on that. And what we're seeing is they're still the business driver, but AI in terms of the whole corporate strategy, we're finding, is very much led by IT in the size of organizations that we're working for. So we see them kind of owning the responsibility for making sure that it all plugs together. And I saw an article just the other day actually that was saying, well, there had been a big swing towards IT teams planning on building their own, if you like. There's maybe a bit more of a coming back and thinking, okay, we need to integrate a lot of these tools, but actually it's pretty useful to be using best of breed around the organization. But that's a pretty common pattern, I'd say. For
Enterprise software, the full circle of
it always is. It always
yeah,
is.
and the ecosystem, which is
The ecosystem, but again, it's not just the you create a certain use case, you get the AI to do that. But for example, even with what we do, we have so many, ready out of the box integrations, ready with providers of data and those sources, and that's a whole process of not just an IT integration, but there's a whole commercial agreement behind that. And those are the kinds of things that I think it's quite easy that, all of a sudden a large corporate team finds that's not what they really want to be spending all their time on, because there's a lot more going on in their business than getting stuck in one corner. And that's where I think, the right best of breed does make a big difference.
and then maybe on some of the kind of the practical applications. So kind of my understanding, they'll kind of use a lot market logic software, work with yourself. We spoke a bit prior to the session about, as an example, bringing a new auto insurance car product to market. They could use yourselves to, I won't say shortcut, but kind of use a greater pool of data in order to make a decision of should we even be launching this new auto insurance car product to market. So with that, is there are people now more readily understanding the value of actually how AI can help with the market research and things like that? Is there a growing awareness? How would you frame that?
There is. So just to step back a little bit into the context for this use of data. And we ran an exercise ourselves last year. We worked with a company called Insight Platforms to run some research. And we were seeing, including banking and insurance, but across a broader range of industries. We surveyed their product managers and their marketing leaders as well. So we weren't speaking to the insights team who've got a vested interest in use of research, but we were just talking to the users of the research. And what they were saying was they've got a huge and actually growing appetite for using data. They want more and more volume of data. But when the question was put to them around, well, how many of your key decisions are you using this for? It was like, well, it's only about 60% of our decisions. Well, that leaves 40% of an awful lot of decisions not fully backed up by data. And then when we were asking about, well, what's the blocker on that? What is the reason for that? Wasn't massively surprising, I suppose, but a lot of it was it's data silos. It takes too long. If I have to then write an email off to the insights person who then goes and finds me the info and gets it back to me, all of this, it just adds time. And like any industry, insurance is just the same. Everybody's very kind of time poor and needs the information as soon as possible. So those were some of the barriers that they that they'd highlighted that we certainly think know that technology and AI in particular can help them with. But then what was interesting as well, that was asking them, oh, okay, if you take this away, what impact is that going to have? And over 80% of them were saying it's gonna improve our product launch plans. It's going to improve, the advertising success that we have. And you're talking millions of pounds or millions of dollars or millions of euros that is being invested by companies, annually on these launches.
Mhm.
Um, so when you start to have a look at, okay, well, if I can shift the efficiency of those programs even just a little bit, look at the impact that's going to have on your bottom line. It is critical, and I think back to the point that you're asking about the AI, yes, the expectation, I think, as well, is that now with AI, I want everything a lot quicker. The speed of business, beginning to end is a lot quicker. So if it used to take me 3 months to do some research at the beginning of a product development cycle, I want that to take me, a couple of weeks. I want it to be instant.
Good. Well, okay then. So, any parting comments? I quite like the practical application piece, and I also quite like the even in the insurance sphere, like how do you use AI in order to inform decisions about how you take things to market? But any other parting comments before we end?
Yeah, I think just thinking about the speed of innovation, or how much innovation is really needed, and thinking about how does AI, whether it's at the research end or in other parts of the business, is really going to support that. Because McKinsey did a study, and they're talking about easily, you know 20 to 30% of revenues coming from well, when I say new products that have been launched in the past, let's say 3 years, as being the real indicator of a healthy company that is ahead of the market, and a real innovation leader. So if anybody wants to be in that bucket, and they're going to be innovating and introducing new products as quickly as that, then yeah, I think AI is a fantastic way to turbo boost all the talent that you've got in terms of your people, and and come up with those new products which are going to make a difference.
Perfect. Well, Daniela, thanks again. Good to have you on and speak later.
Thank you, Danny. Take care. Bye.